Let me introduce you guys to Steve here. He is talking about form validation and error messages with Zod tonight. Currently, he is a software developer at command+k and has previously worked as a copy editor, historian, digital marketer, and Latin teacher. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, give it up for Steve.
Yeah, so tonight I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things, which is forms. In particular, no, it is though. I love forms. Like, I'm not being sarcastic. And I also enjoy form validation, actually. Forms are cool, right? Like, people are buying stuff, but they can't fill your form in, so they don't buy it, or they hate your brand or whatever. No, all right. So I'm going to divide my talk into 3 parts. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Zod is. Then I'm going to show you an example or 2 with form validation using Zod schemas and React hook form. Then I'm going to show you how to get Zod to give you like better error messages that you can display on your forms for your user, because the default ones are not really meant for users to look at. All right, so Zod, what is that? It's a library that you can use to validate data. It lets you write schemas to match the shape of whatever the data is that you want to validate. This is for use when you have data that's coming from someplace outside of your application and you shouldn't trust it, and you want to see that it is what it needs to be so that your program can use it. So basically what you would do is you define the schema that you want. That can be anything from like a string or a Boolean, something simple, all the way up to something complex like an array or an object or objects nested in other objects and arrays of objects and all that kind of stuff. So you create your schema and then you use that schema to parse the data that you want. And then if there's an error, you can decide how you want to handle the error. And if there's not, they can just go about your business. And yeah, you can use the error messages to debug stuff. If it's in like your server logs, for example, then the Zod default error messages are useful. But if it's for the forms, then you'll want to change them, which you'll see in a minute when I show you an example. And yeah, so I'm just going to focus on validating data that's coming into forms, because the user can put whatever they want in there, and that might be quite different from what you expected or what you wanted it to be. So you definitely want to validate that. All right, so to demonstrate forms, I had to come up with something like some example forms. So I invented this like Seattle fast food restaurant with a bunch of different menu items. This is the first form, and then the second form is the confirmation form for after you order that. I don't know, Seattle's are another one of my favorite things. I think they're pretty cute, and they're also like really hungry, so it makes kind of practical sense to let them order food online. Okay, so over here in the code, you can see the order item schema. Can I zoom in? Oh, I can, but it's going to take me a second. That's probably still not big enough, is it?
No. Do it again.
How about now? You can accept it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. I decided to divide the schema into different parts. What I want the user to submit is an array with 1 or more order items in it. And so each of these is an order item, right? That makes sense. And so the schema that I have for that is this object here, which has a name, an ID, like we imagine it is from a database. And it's not, this is just a mock-up, but, and then also a price. And so that's for all the items. And then I needed the TypeScript type for this elsewhere in my code. So I just used Zod to infer that. And then, yeah, the schema is a Zod object. Z is for Zod. And then the name is a string, and the ID and the price are both numbers, nice and simple. Then, in order to turn that into the order itself, the array of things, also pretty simple. I took well, first of all, this Zod object represents the form data that the form is going to receive. That's why it's an object. It looks kind of funny because there's only one field in this form, but a lot of times you would have more than one. So here, order is the only thing that you can submit with this form. And then to make a schema for that, I just take the order item schema and I call the array method on it. So now I have an array of order item schemas as a new schema. And I thought it's senseless to have you go to the next screen if you haven't actually selected anything, because you can't buy it if there's nothing in there. So there's no order to confirm if you haven't said anything yet. So use the min method, put 1 in there. So that says that the array has to have at least one thing in it. And then, so I'm using this with React hook form here. There's nowhere near enough time to say a lot about that, so just don't think about it. But to connect it, here's the use form hook. I'm using my order type, which I've inferred from the schema, to tell React hook form what the shape of the form data is actually going to be. And then it needs a resolver so that it can do, React hook form is doing all the form logic behind the scenes. So it needs a resolver, and in particular it needs the Zod resolver with my order schema to know that that's what it's validating against here. Okay, so now let's show you what the error message looks like. Okay, so I've set this up to display the error message up at the top, and all this red stuff, that's part of how I set up the form, but again, I don't have enough time to get into all that. So this is the default error message for that schema. Remember, it was an array, and it needed to have at least one item. So it tells me too small expected array to have greater than or equal to one item. Fine for me and all of you. The poor little C-otters will have no idea what that means. They probably don't know what an array is. I don't know if the average C-otter knows what greater than or equals to is. So not really the best error message. Plus, with a helpful message, when everything is in red, I feel like it makes sense. But with an unhelpful one, it seems like maybe the site's broken, or maybe I broke the site, and I'm not going to try to order anything today or ever again because I feel really anxious about it now. Does anyone else get anxious filling in forms? Yeah, I do. Okay, so let's imagine a scenario where you just, I don't know, lucked out and you got to the next form. And so now I've got the schema for this form there for you. This is your confirmation form where you're going to confirm your order and give us your contact details and stuff. So this form has 3 fields. And so my schema is again an object here. And I've got name, email, and phone to correspond to that. For the name, it's a string that's nice and simple. Trim off the white space around it, and there should be something left, right? You have to actually have a name. Then email, this is a cool thing. In Zod 4, email is just a built-in by itself. You used to have to chain it on to string, but now you don't. And then phone number, this isn't how I would deal with phone numbers in real life. I just wanted to show you could do regular expressions. So string, trim off the white space, regular expression, which I've written out up above, and that's for most of the ways I thought a person might type in a 10-digit phone number, which is what I want. So that's no country code or anything. Okay, so that's all connected to this form somewhere else. Now I want to show you what do the error messages look like for this. So I'm going to submit it without filling anything in. They're even worse than the other one, I think. So the first one, the too small one, you've seen that before. The invalid email, that's nice because it knows it has to be an email, right? So it gave me a decent one to start with. But the worst one, the worst out of all of them, is this one. Would you want to show your user the actual regular expression that they didn't match with? No, horrible. I would totally believe I busted this site. Okay. Now, just for the sake of moving on, I'm going to put in the details of my personal favorite sea otter. That's baby Joey. real sea otter, by the way. And we'll put in his phony sitcom phone number there. Okay, so that takes us to the success screen where that's like our frustrated otter, or he's sleepy because it took him a long time and now he's tired, or I don't know what. But he's not so happy because those error messages just didn't make any sense to him. All right then. Now let's have a look at some better error messages. Or at least I think they're better. You can decide for yourself. Okay, so for the first form, let me show you the error. Okay. So choose at least one item. That's exactly what I want the user to do. So now I'm telling them. I've already got it set up to highlight every item on the menu in red when you haven't selected any. So to me, logically, that makes sense. I think to a lot of people, and perhaps even sea otters, that would make sense, that you've got to choose something. And how did I get that error message in there? Pretty simple, actually. When I defined the schema, and I said minimum length 1, I just gave it this additional options object here, and I told it the error message should be choose at least one item, and there you go. But I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna choose more than one item. I'm gonna go for the Kelpie Burger Supreme. I'm gonna get 12-piece urchin nuggets, and how about a strawberry clam shake too, why not? Okay. And then we'll go on to the other one. I'll show you the errors here. That's nice. I can control them. I know they're only going to be one line long, even on mobile, so they're not going to run over the labels of the next things. And they're all very simple. I made them match because I'm kind of fussy. So I changed even though the email one was fine, invalid email address, I didn't want it to say like, enter your name and then invalid email address. I wanted like, tell the user what to do. Imperative verb, enter your name, enter a valid email address, enter a 10-digit phone number. Way more, or way easier to understand than like your whatever didn't match this bunch of characters. So you're gonna have a question for me, aren't you? Yeah. I'm almost done. Right. We have to see the happy sea otter first. All right. And then one other thing I wanted to show you. This is a React hook form thing though. Once it's invalid, the React hook form default is that as you type, it will just revalidate it until you get it correct. So then it switches to accepting it. And we see success. And ta-da, that's the little sea otter. He's happy about our useful error messages, so he's giving us a little round of applause or something there. And yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to cover. Just to remind you what I did cover today. In conclusion, I said a little bit about what Zod is and what the schemas are used for. In particular, for validating forms, it's pretty handy, especially when you combine it with React hook form like I showed you in the second part of my talk, where I also demonstrated the not very helpful for user error messages. And in the final portion, I showed you how to overwrite them and make them much more helpful. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'll take some questions.
Can you have more just like filtered error messages, like could phone number give you an error message in one case and a different error message in another case, based on what the user put in?
Yeah, if you want to validate it against different things, then you can have different error messages for them. You can do some complicated stuff too. Like you can, on top of this, you can like chain on these refines. It's another Zod method where you can validate the whole schema based on one or more of the things within it and have error messages for that too.
So a quick question, why Zod? Like, why did you choose Zod over doing custom schema validation?
Oh, that's just what I'm most familiar with. My main point was about useful error message, I think, because that's a universal point. If Zod goes out of existence, but you're still validating forms later, I thought you could remember, yes, still put an error message that the user can understand.